Let's move on now to the next email today. And the next email today, where did it go? Here it is. Comes to us from Vince Tughan, who writes, "Hey guys, I was wondering if you saw the news that Oscar Isaac may be playing Solid Snake in a Metal Gear Solid movie. I think he'll be an amazing Snake. So, does this mean they're finally almost ready to start shooting this movie? I feel like we've been waiting for it most of my life." All right, thanks a lot for the email, Vince. Now, so for those of you who don't know, what Vince is referring to is that there are some stories and headlines going around right now that Oscar Isaac could be playing Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid. However, I hate to bust your bubble, Vince, and everybody else, but there is no legitimate story that legitimately proposes any chance that Oscar Isaac is actually going to play the role. He has as good of a chance playing the role as anybody else on the planet, but despite headlines, there is no real story here that Oscar Isaac may be playing. Here's where all this comes from. So Oscar Isaac was kind of being interviewed about something. And in the midst of it, they bring up video game movies. And he goes, "Oh, I'd throw my hat in the ring for Metal Gear Solid," right? Just like every actor does. What? An actor who wants a job? Really? Anyway. So what happened then is that Jordan Vogt-Roberts, who is directing, at least is currently signed on to direct a Metal Gear Solid movie, he got on social media and he said this. And his very first thing that he wrote is, "This musing is not news." It's the very first thing he writes. "This musing is not news." All right. And then he goes and writes, "Everybody asking how I feel about Oscar Isaac saying he would like to be Solid Snake. The full process required to cast an icon hasn't even started. But ask Boss Logic, because the fan treasured Boss Logic, of course, did what he does and made this great fan art, which you can see a little piece of down there in the corner. He said, ask Boss Logic where the idea for his brilliant mock-up came from. The ball's in Oscar's court." So that's what he says. "This musing is not news. We haven't even started the process of casting." Anyway, there's that. So what does the news do when he says this is not news? Well, they run news headlines that say Oscar Isaac could play Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid. And this one is coming from a really good website. I love Coming Soon. ComingSoon.net is one of my go-to movie news sites. They're usually very, very reliable. But even they got caught up in this. So we go from this is not news, we haven't even started casting, this is not news, to a news headline, Oscar Isaac could play Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid. Anyway, so he's got as good of a chance as any. But I believe at some point, Rob, if I'm not mistaken, I think at some point, like Tom Hardy was attached to Metal Gear. I think, if I'm remembering it correctly.
I seem to recall that as well.
Yeah, so I don't know when that came and went. And I don't know, this is a game that a lot of people for a long time have thought could make a pretty good movie. And they just seem to sputter and sputter and sputter. And then Warcraft comes out, doesn't do well. Then you had Assassin's Creed come out. The two films we thought were going to usher in a golden age of video game movies. Remember that? We thought, like so many of us thought, Warcraft and Assassin's Creed are coming, and these are the movies that are going to break the curse and open the doors for the golden, glorious, heavenly age of great video game movie adaptations, and that didn't happen, which I think just kind of pushed these off. Then Tomb Raider came out, which was actually pretty good. And it didn't do well financially, which I think made the studios even more apprehensive about putting something out. Rob, let me ask you this. Should they do a Metal Gear Solid movie? Is it too late to do it? Is the environment even right for big, high-profile video game movies right now? Or do you think because of the failures of some, it makes it an even better opportunity now? What do you think?
Well, Metal Gear Solid is a really interesting franchise. I mean, it's really if a video game could be auteurist, that is Hojima, the Japanese designer and impresario behind this entire franchise, is quite a visionary, and I think if they made any Metal Gear Solid movie, he would have to be involved, and I just think that there's a lot more going on with this project, and it's again it's got a secret agent element to it. Sort of a super soldier element to it, bleeding edge technology. It's got all kinds of things that could turn this into a really interesting franchise. Whereas like the Assassin's Creed franchise, we have the future scenes, and then we have the scenes in the past, and they it's like whenever they try and adapt a video game, they have to like move away from the video game itself and add all these other things that people who like the games are like, why'd you have to go in that direction? You know, why'd you emphasize that? But I think Metal Gear Solid, it has so many things in it that could be great, that are inherently cinematic, because the games themselves have been so cinematic that I think it could be a great franchise. But with the way video game movies have been performing, I can't see anyone taking the gamble on it right now. I just can't see. I mean, if you had $200 million, would that be the first movie you were going to make?
Yeah, now with the track record. And it's too bad, too, because it's not just Metal Gear Solid. You got a couple of other prime IPs. Just wait. Last of Us is one that people have been screaming for. And then over the years, we've had little bits of news that maybe something's happening, then nothing does. God of War is a recent one that could make a great big screen adaptation. But again, you're right. If you're a studio and you got $200 million to spend, and you look at the track record of video game movies and how they've performed, even when you've had a pretty good one like Tomb Raider, it would probably give you a little bit of pause.